Welcome to Behind the Play, a video and podcast product of The Hoop Show that explores the lives of Geelong players past and present, as well as the off-field figures that are keeping us Geelong strong. My name is Paul James, and today I had the great pleasure to introduce someone and chat to someone who I thoroughly enjoyed watching run across the footy field, especially in the blue and white hoops, but did a pretty decent job for the Demons as well. Shannon Byrnes, how are you, mate?
Yeah, going well, thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on. I have seen a couple of the other podcasts you've done with
cool.
some of my old teammates, Matty Stokes. I watched a bit of that one. So, feel honoured to be asked on. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks a lot for coming aboard. And I'm noticing a bit of a pattern in what, I think most people who watch or listen kind of know that Ben does a lot of the legwork on the back end. He's obviously got a bit of a bias towards the small running forwards and that sort of thing, because it's you, Bundy, Stokesy, and that's it so far in terms of kind of the past or kind of current current Geelong players. So he's clearly got a bit of a favouritism there, and I don't blame him. You guys were guns, so...
Oh, well, the small forwards generally get pushed to the side, and usually it's the big centre-half forwards and the midfielders that get all the love. So,
well, we're doing our bit to flip the script a bit.
Yeah, I'm all about that. I think, we can have a bit of time in the spotlight as well. So, I think it's great that the small forwards are getting some love.
Yeah, we'll keep the likes of Moons and all those guys out for a nice long while then, and just give you guys as much time to shine as possible. Maybe just never give them a gig.
Yeah, no, I love
that. Though if he's listening to this, I'm sorry, mate.
No, it should be a hard policy. Moons gets enough airtime on Fox Footy. And,
that's a good point, actually. Yeah, he does more than enough.
On radio, like all those guys, they get a lot of airtime. So everyone knows their stories.
Yeah, it's true. Very, very true. So I guess as for anyone watching and listening, as of the time we recorded, it's very, very early in the new year. So how are things shaping up at this particular stage? I've lost track of the date now. It's all we're about it's the 19th of January when we record. So yeah, pretty early in the piece. But how are the boys shaping up at this point?
Yeah, it's been I suppose a good start to coming back off the Christmas break. We only had 2 weeks before Christmas.
Yep.
You go pretty deep into the season. Generally, you don't have that much time when you get back for that pre-Christmas period. But this is my second season back now, and we've got more players on the track than we had this time last year when I first came back. So
always helps.
Take that as a good sign. But like if you ask 17 other teams in the league, they're all going pretty good at this stage of the year. They're all ahead of where they thought they would be.
That PR spin.
Yeah, a lot of PR spin. Everyone's on the same amount of points at this time of year, so you need to pump up where you're at. But having said that, I'm pretty comfortable with the condition that the players have come back in, and they seem excited about the season ahead, and the potential of going back to back is always a good one, which hasn't been done in a very long time. So
it's been a bit of a drought in that sense.
Yeah, for the Cats anyway. We obviously had a good period there at one point, but just couldn't do the back-to-back. So there's a bit of motivation there for this crew to do what I guess what my era and our team wasn't able to do.
So, out of interest, because you're obviously at the Cats now, having and working with the club post a premiership, and obviously you were part of the Cats team that won several premierships. What does that difference now versus then look like in terms of the way that you re-entered pre-season, having just won a premiership, or in your case, obviously participating, but now as a coach? Are there many differences in terms of the way that the club is approaching that period now? Because obviously the period that they get is shorter than every other club in the comp, outside of maybe the Swans in this case.
Yeah, it is shorter, but not by a whole lot. Like the teams that didn't play finals only came back to pre-season a week earlier than
right.
Which is strange to think, but they're a bit more controlled now by the AFL in ways of they don't want players doing pre-seasons for ridiculous amounts of time, which was at one point when I was playing, it was getting to that point where it was just more is more, and we were coming back almost at the start of October at one point there.
Yeah, right.
And you were playing practice matches. You were playing 6 or 7 practice matches before the season started, and it was getting a bit out of hand. Players were getting burnt out before the season started, whereas now I think they're much smarter with how they handle the players' time off in pre-season and make sure that while physically they're still getting the work done, like mentally they're actually ready to go when the season comes. They're not sick of footy. So I think that the way that the league and clubs handle that now is a lot smarter than say 10 years ago.
Would you say that we are kind of there in terms of what that sweet spot is, or do you think we've still got maybe a couple of little half steps to go by your observation?
Well, it's different. It is different for each club, and like some clubs have got younger players who really need that maybe that extra work, depending on your age demographic
Oh yeah, of course.
in what each team's got. So to say that there's one, I suppose, template that fits everyone in the league is certainly not what I'm suggesting. But
Yeah.
just the flexibility for teams to be able to say, well, this is where our team's at. This is what our team needs. I think that we can adjust that depending on where your team sits. But yeah, it's a lot closer. If it's not spot on, it's very close.
Good to hear. Well, we'll probably find ourselves talking a bit more about current day sort of stuff again shortly. And obviously, you were part of the Cats in a successful 2022 year. But I'd love to rewind, way back and kind of touch on some of the early days footy exposure and what it was like for you as you were growing up. I mean, was footy there from more or less day one? Were you always ball in hand from a really young age?
Yeah, no, absolutely loved footy from a young age, but I played all sports. It was basketball, athletics, tennis, cricket. I think, like I would say to any young kid, I've got a 5-year-old boy myself and a 3-year-old girl. Like I'm not going to force one sport down their throat. I think the more sports you play as a young kid, the better.
And then find what you love.
Yeah, you find what you love for your social. I think it's great for your social development, but also whatever sport you end up choosing, I think you can take pieces from the sports that you did play and bring that into whatever sport you end up settling on.
Yeah.
I think like you see that guys like Scott Pendlebury and like these types that were big into basketball. I think he brings a lot of what he learnt in basketball into the way he plays his footy.
Well, you hear it in the commentary all the time about how people talk about, it feels like the game is slower for him and he's able to just... Yeah. And it's a lot of that sense stuff that tends to come with the tighter space of a basketball.
Seeing gaps, those types of things. I'd say he would have picked a lot of that up through basketball, not necessarily through his football training.
Yep.
So, I'm a big advocate for kids to play all sports and everything they can until they do eventually decide on what they want to settle on.
Was there anything else when you were younger? And obviously you mentioned a few different sports there, but was there anything else that you particularly fancied yourself as when you were younger, or was footy kind of always maybe that standout despite the fact that you were interested in other sports as well?
Yeah, footy was a standout. Athletics really helped me with my footy, I think, and like I was able to do okay in different events at state level at athletics. As a young kid, it was always like I'm going to go to the Olympics, but started to realise probably didn't have quite the attributes to be a 100 metre or 200 metre sprint athlete at that level anyway.
Yeah.
I guess that, like I said before, like that helped me in my footy and other sports that I decided to play. Speed became something that
Big asset.
heavily relied on, being the height that I was. So footy was always, if I was ever going to make it, that was a sport for me.
Was there ever a concern of yours or anyone else around you? Because, I mean, you just mentioned obviously height wasn't something you necessarily, compared to a lot of other players, you were shorter. Was that ever something you thought was going to be a serious obstacle for you?
Well, I had a lot of people think that it was going to be an obstacle for me. And
did you begin to doubt that at any stage? Or
no, I personally always had a strong belief in myself. I think if I didn't, like everything everyone else said probably would have come true. So probably beside my family and myself, I don't think too many other people probably did think I was going to make it at footy. So that's fine. Like I did well at junior level, but probably to the point where they thought he might make a good local footballer and that type of thing just because of his height and whatnot. But yeah, my belief was always pretty strong that I could make it, and yeah, certainly wasn't the.
Well, you weren't wrong.
Nah, well, yeah, in the end I wasn't, but yeah, I guess you have to have that belief at my height to make it at the top level, I suppose.
Yeah. And so you growing up, Shepherd and Bears, was that right? Was your local club? Yeah. And how are you faring compared to the rest of the pack at that particular time? Were you? I mean, typically we think of, not always, but typically we think of the juniors that go on to play AFL as being kind of the top of the junior level group. Was that kind of the case for you as well?
Yeah, well, I was one of the better players at junior level. I was able to play in a lot of premierships as a junior player. Played in 5 premierships junior level. Played with some really good players throughout that period. I guess right throughout my junior career, there was always like 1 or 2 players who people thought would make it, like that were in my teams, and like while I was a maybe, I think the others were like they thought they would, and like guys like I played with Steel Sidebottom's brother Tyson, who was an absolute jet as a youngster, and probably just didn't have the motivation to make it at the professional level, but plays exactly like Steel. Aiden Blizzard was another one who was a cricketer, went on to play some really good cricket. He was a jet as a youngster,
and not bad on the pitch either.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, played with some good players. I played Murray Bushrangers for 2 years as well. Played with some good players there. Mark McGough was one that burst onto the scene at early days, but didn't quite go on with it. There were always sort of these players that were just maybe viewed as 1 or 2 steps above me, which didn't really faze me at the time. Like
just see it as a challenge.
Yeah, and it wasn't like I'm just beating them to get there. It was more internally focused. Like, I could still get there myself. It might just be through different avenues, which it turned out to be through the rookie list.
Yeah, and so I guess as we flash forward to that day a little bit, what was it like when you got picked up? Because that was 2002, was that right?
Yeah, the end of 2002. So I was a young year 12, so I'd finished year 12, and I was being a teacher's aide at my high school.
Honourable job.
Yeah, it was good. It's a good job actually. I got to go to organise all the sports days, go on all the school camps, and I actually really enjoyed the job. I was playing my top age year as a bushranger, so I was actually in the teachers' lounge at morning tea time when so I guess previous to that, I got offered to go train with the Cats for 3 weeks. Stephen Wells called me, and the school let me go and train for 3 weeks with the club, which is
a good sign.
Yeah, well, it was good. It was a good sign, and was no guarantees at that point. But they had a couple of scratch matches, and they went okay. I played okay in them, but still, you never know. Like I said, the height factor is always a thing. And got a call from Wellesley at morning tea, and all the teachers knew what it was about, and let me know that they were going to take me with their final pick in the rookie draft, pick 40. And it was an awesome moment for me. Like all my teachers, like they know the journey, they ride your journey as much as anyone. And
for sure.
Yeah, so I was able to celebrate, that moment with them. It was a pretty emotional one, really, just to get the opportunity to come down and show my wares. So yeah, it was a special time.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. The teachers kind of riding the bumps with the student or whatever at the time. It's certainly, I mean, as unfortunately I think a lot of people probably fed up with me talking about on the show. Like I am a teacher professionally, and so I've had it not so much at at my previous school that I worked at, but my current one now, we had Maddie Press Parkers come through, and there's one or two currently in our Year 12 group that are
Yep.
fancied as being potential options for the AFLW path along the way, and you instantly hear there's this little bit of rumbling that goes on, and you start to hear like teachers who aren't even necessarily into the sport all that much, or just sport full stop. They start asking questions. There's a little bit of investment there. They're curious. And you start to notice there is this whole school sort of riding the bumps with the person and trying to be there to support in whatever way you can. It's always really fascinating as someone who's really into footy, but it's a really good energy around the place.
Yeah, well, I every time I go back home, I'll go back and visit a lot of my teachers. I've still got good relationships with them.
Yeah,
After I played in the premierships, I took my medals back and showed them around at the teachers' lunch or morning tea. So yeah, you do have a strong relationship with your teachers. You spend so much time with them right throughout your junior days. So I still get a lot of satisfaction with catching up with them right even to this day now.
yeah, good. And the year of your draft, you came through with the likes of Mac. There was Domsey Lonergan, Brett Maloney amongst the group as well. So quite a few lifelong friends amongst that group as well.
Yeah, well, there's still a lot of them that live in Geelong now. So Mac works at the club now, obviously, as list manager, and Tommy Lonergan lives around the corner from me. James Kelly's one of my best mates. Matty Stokes is in Geelong. Matt Egan works here. So the bond between that group is still really strong. Like, we were able to obviously play and have some success as a team, and it's a good reason for us to catch up every year. But a lot of us live in the Geelong community, so we see each other quite a lot.
Good to hear, and I guess opportunity came knocking a couple of years into the career when it was unfortunate circumstances, but when Cal broke his leg, that was your opportunity to get promoted to the senior list. Am I right?
Yeah, it was a bit of bad news for Cal, but good news for me at that point.
How did you're all mates at this point? Like when an opportunity like that comes along through a horrible circumstance for Cal,
Yeah.
What does that look like at the time? Because obviously, no one's going to blame you for being really bubbly and energetic, but at the same time, there's heartbreak at the same time. What does that look like at the time?
No, he was fine. Like you say, it's not like I'm the reason that his leg was broken. And
Yeah,
if there was something good that was going to come out of that, well, then one of his best mates was going to get an opportunity to play at senior level. It was a bit of a silver lining. You still go around there, support him, and see how he's feeling. But he was really thrilled that if he was to go off onto the long-term injury list, that I was the person that was going to benefit from that and be able to get to play my first game, which was pretty cool.
and when that opportunity arose, so a round 16 game against Sydney, how did the whirlwind that is that debut game? What was it like for you?
It was an awesome time in my life, and you don't remember every game you ever played, but you do remember the significant ones, and I remember that one really clearly. I remember
Got a goal?
Even just the week leading into it, where Bomber had told me that I was going to play, which was a really good moment. And the game itself, I suppose, I remember just I was living with Stephen King at the time, and we were both getting our ankles strapped before the game. And he said, "You're cold, mate," and I was, "No, I'm not cold at all." And my legs were shaking, like I was just. And I remember him saying to me at the time, "Mate, like, be nervous, be excited about it, but just try and focus on, keep it simple, focus on, things that you're good at." And he said, "What do you want to focus on?" I said, "Oh, let's go with the tackling." And he goes, "All right, just focus on that." And I remember that game. I think I had more tackles than I had in any other game throughout my career. I just focused on the tackling.
Do what you can do well.
Yeah, and that really settled me down. I was able to get, a couple of tackles early, which made me feel a part of the game. In those days, you didn't play like you come on for 5 or 10 minutes and then you'd sit on the bench for 20 minutes. I ended up having 7 or 8 tackles and 6 or 7 touches, but was able to kick a goal at the end in the last quarter, which was remember it really vividly, and had all my family in the grandstand. It was a really cool moment.
And as the years progressed, you began with the number 46 on your back. Did you get much of a say in the number 17 when that opportunity arose, or was that I don't know how that kind of numbering and how those chopping and changing sort of things happen? Was that did you have much of a part in that?
Players come and leave every year, obviously, and I guess there's a bit of seniority to who gets the pick of the best numbers. Usually, there's high draft picks that get a look in at the lower numbers that are left vacant. I remember, Tim Callan ended up moving to Ben Graham's number after he left. He went to 7. And I'd done 2 years in 46, and I was going to get elevated to the senior list. So we must not have had really a high draft pick that year, I don't think. We might have had Kane Tenase. No, he was the year before. I'm not sure, but
really scratching the back of our brains now.
Yeah, I can't really remember, but the footy manager just gives you a call and just says, "Look, is 46 getting a bit heavy for you?" Lingy was really flat with me, to be honest. I was his next door neighbour at 45. But 17, just seemed like a cool number. I had a lot of history to the number.
Absolutely,
Didn't think too much. It wasn't too hard a decision, 46 to 17, but see what Mark Blitzarves has done with 46. So I wouldn't have really mattered, but I just decided to make the move when I got offered it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. And so in 2005, you got a Rising Star nomination. Obviously, 2005 was a tricky year for the club in terms of how things ended. Unfortunately, what was that like with the heartbreak of that final?
Yeah, well, I didn't actually.
Behind the scenes stuff for people also, by the way, I am interviewing the person who caused that problem for Geelong tonight. So I'm not.
Right.
It's going to be a nice emotional test for me, I think. But
I can imagine.
Nick Davis will be on the show. So
yeah, awesome. No, he's a great guy, Nick. I run into him often in the footy circles. And
does he remind you about it still?
No. I think he knows that everyone sees that last quarter every year on Fox Footy or somewhere, so
burnt out on it.
Yeah, that's right. But we had a really good relationship with the Sydney guys. Like, we had a lot of good games against them and the Brisbane guys over the years, and we still catch up with all of them pretty regularly. But that game in particular, I was first emergency for that game. I played about 19 games for the year, but missed out in the finals that year, and the boys were obviously devastated being able to having a 3 or 4 or 3 goal lead in a really low scoring affair, for it to be taken away from you like that was
pretty heartbreaking.
But you reflect on those times, and sometimes those times are the times that motivate the good times. So I don't think the Cats fans have too much to complain about.
No, not with everything that came afterwards.
Only missing a couple of final series from 2004 onwards is a pretty unbelievable record, and I think that game in particular really motivated a lot of guys going forward.
So you reckon that was a really key moment then in terms of what, not on its own, of course, and we know that 2006 was a bit of a dip,
but when you get back into those big games, you're able to reflect and realise that you've never got the game in the bag. So sometimes you need to lose a close one like that to not let it happen again.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so the 2006 you got, the first of the premierships for you from that point. So there was the 2006 pre-season one against the Crows, and obviously as
like we'd won the flag.
And obviously a series of success from that point. You started to become a regular within the team. We got the 2007-2009 premiership. I will note something that I've got here in the notes that Ben has gone and popped in. It wasn't there when I last checked, so he's clearly tweaked the language since. His wording: nearly kicked goal of the century in the 2007 grand final. How do you feel about
that? It's a bit stiff there. I think I got legged, and they ended up calling it holding the ball. Jacob Surgeon just tapped my ankles as I was going in to kick it. But yeah, it would have been nice to kick that one. But not to worry, we were fair way up at that point, so it wasn't like
Yeah, it was a pretty good day overall.
Yeah. No, it was nice to feel like you sort of won it not long after half time. But yeah, no, it would have been nice to slot that for sure.
I mean, if you'd have managed to jag that one and Chappie with his hanger from the day and all those sort of things come together, just put a cherry on top. But yeah, not to be, but obviously the premiership success is pretty damn good, right?
Yeah, no, it can't be too greedy. And yeah, like that year was an awesome year, and like you spoke about 06 and those years previous, but those years we weren't probably the professionals that we needed to be in the way that we went about, and I'm sure guys have spoken about it on this podcast before, but yeah, the way that we went about our footy, and I think everyone across the league at that point, like there was a real social side to playing in the AFL, and we were out most weekends, to be honest, in those early years.
Well, that was just kind of the done thing, right? That's just what people did.
That's what everyone was doing across the league, and like I say that, like sometimes it takes bad experiences to turn things around. Well, 06 was certainly that bad experience where we thought we were flying early days, and things really got turned on their head pretty quickly. It was that year that we certainly became a lot more professional, and when you win the flag and you make those kind of changes to the way you go about things, that sort of set the bar going forward.
Well, we all hear about obviously the leading teams experience between 06 and 07, and a lot of the conversations were happening, some of the really hard conversations that some people had to hear. Was there anything that that you in particular took on from that period that you feel really helped set you up to be a part of that 2007-2009 premiership winning team?
Not so much the leading team stuff. Some players had some really significant feedback in that. Mine wasn't as significant. I probably wasn't as an important player, to be honest, that really needed to hear it. Yeah, I've been on the Geelong Cats podcast and spoke about a moment I had with Bomber out in the training track where we ended up wrestling. That in itself was a pretty key moment for me. Confidence was was something I really struggled with. I already touched on how you didn't play a lot of game time in your early days. I think I've still got the record for the most for the player that started on the bench the most in their first 50 games. I think I started on the bench 45 in my first 50 games.
Yeah, right. So of course someone's keeping a stat on that.
Yeah, and in those days, starting on the bench was pretty significant. You wouldn't come on until about sort of 5 minutes to go in the first quarter, and then you'd start off again. And I found it really hard to build confidence at AFL level through that reason. VFL footy, I'd play almost 100% of the time and feel pretty confident at that level, but I'd come in and play a different role at AFL level and not play too much game time. So it took me a long time to build confidence. And even with Bomber, like having that moment with Bomber where we had that wrestle on the training track, like that to me was a significant moment for me where I'm like, stop worrying about what everyone's thinking about you. Don't worry if you make a mistake. Even if you do get dragged every time you do make one, just get on with it. Like it's going to keep
best
going.
Foot forward, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it was really from that moment on that got worrying about every mistake that I made, and I went from being one of the worst shots in front of goal in that period to, I think in 2009 I kicked 32 goals 10 or something like that. So
pretty good strike rate.
It wasn't like it was just I tweaked something in my goal kicking training. It was a massive mental thing for me. I wasn't as worried about missing and what was going to happen to me if I missed. I just played footy, and that really changed everything for me, really, and was able to play with a bit more freedom.
Yeah, I mean, that confidence and security is a huge deal, not just obviously in footy, but like in any sort of profession, really. Is like if you feel like you're, I mean, I guess there's a line where it can then become complacency, and clearly that wasn't the case for you. But like that safety, that knowledge that, okay, I'm all right. I just need to continue to put my best foot forward and demonstrate, whatever our KPIs might happen to be, regardless of whatever organisation you're in. Then then you're in a good place. And that was clearly the case for you, where you felt like you had that security, and so you could just go out and play the game that you needed to play, the role that you needed to play, and you
Yeah.
executed upon it brilliantly.
Yeah. No, the mental side of AFL is huge, really. A lot of people, like, we'll see players miss really easy goals and say, "Oh, the local footy park player could have kicked that one," and of course they could have. But if their job's on the line, if their spot in the team's on the line, if they're playing in front of 50,000 people, like, they don't tend to put those things in their statement.
Yeah,
Like, would they have done it if they had all those things
all
attached
the
to it,
external factors.
rather than no one watching, and who cares if they miss? So, yeah, the mental side of things is really huge. And like, who's doing their goal kicking training? Like, there's always those statements like, who's teaching them how to kick down there? Well, you go down and watch them at training, they hardly miss. It becomes the fatigue of the game, and then the mental side of the importance of the goal, and what it means to them, and their spot in the side, and all those factors on top of everything. It's not just a technique thing that's going to be the
Yeah.
difference in goal kicking.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, the fatigue's also a huge part of it as well, which I think kind of gets overlooked sometimes too, especially in the most modern game, the speed that the game is moving often, especially as we've kind of started to move towards that faster, more slingshot brand of football that we see across the board. Naturally, fatigue's going to come with that.
Yeah, no, fatigue's a huge part of the game now. There's no time to rest for any player on the ground wherever they are, really. Like, it's just a rolling offense and a rolling defense, both ways, and you can't just sort of sit back in the forward pocket and have a chat to the back pocket about things until the ball comes down there. There's none of that. You're involved in the game always, and running sort of 15 k's a game at high speed. That's
It's
yeah,
pretty
it's
full
a
on.
significant factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's obviously really important. The game's sort of really getting harder and harder in that sense of just how fit you need to be able to keep up.
Obviously, the success of 2007, 2009, and I think we'll get into a little bit of a comparison between the moments for you shortly. But obviously, that enormous success, but then there was the unfortunate aspects of missing 08, which I mean, a loss. Maybe you go, okay, great, didn't have to necessarily go through some of that sort of heartbreak, but also 2011. When you start to weigh these different moments up, how does 2008 and 11 sit with you when you've got the medals for 07 and 9 in your pocket?
Yeah, it's a bit easier to reflect on when you do have that in your pocket, like you say. At the time, they're hard things to go through. It was nice to be part of the '07 one, but even '07, I'd only sort of played 13 games for the year. So was able to sort of time my run okay, and play some decent footy in the VFL to get myself back into the team for that one. '08 really struggled with form and had a couple of injuries. Started to get back in good form towards the end of the year, but just fell short. '09 was probably the most significant for me. Felt like I really contributed throughout the whole season, I suppose.
Well, there's certainly one game that really sticks. I mean, finals aside, one game that really sticks out: a 26 disposal and 5-goal effort against the Dockers there at one point is it's a pretty damn good effort by anyone's standards.
Yeah. No, that was. I tended to play some good footy over in the West. Subiaco really suited the way I played. Like, the harder you sort of run, the
The
more
more you get.
opportunities you would get. So yeah, that was a pretty significant game, and one that really made me feel like I belonged. And yeah, like I say, reflecting on that year, it was a huge year for me, personally, but as a team, that was a really important one for us. Just obviously missing out in '08, and at that stage, is all our we're winning a lot of games. Is it
Yeah.
all going to be for only one premiership, which other teams have done in the past? You'd see Essendon, that they were spoken
Yeah.
about in 2000, like they're going to be a dynasty team, and only had one flag to show for it. So, like, there was examples of it in the past where teams hadn't capitalised on what the success that they'd had. But yeah, that game against St Kilda, like, we had that amazing game with them at Marvel during the year. But to come out on top that day, that really sort of cemented, that we were going to be remembered as a pretty special team. Not obviously, we had more
success, yeah.
ahead, but that one in particular was significant for the group, and it felt like 07 was much about the drought for the fans. 09, well, obviously it's about the fans, but it really felt like it was for the playing group more than anything. Yeah.
I mean, there's the redemption. There's like we've kind of had that one for the club and the fans and the people, and here's one for. Not that it's ever so selfish that it's here's one for us, but there's more of that involved in the whole thing. And even probably I'd imagine just the nature of how the game played out as well, with obviously 2007 being such a blowout, to be able to kind of go through that hard fought slog. I mean, what were you thinking throughout the course of the game? Because there was momentum swings multiple times, and obviously the game was decided ultimately quite late in the piece as well. What was going through your head on the day? Did you allow yourself to really glance at the scoreboard and take it all in, or was it just I just need to keep going and just keep going? And
yeah, a lot of people talk about how they couldn't watch the game and how it was too tense for them to watch, which I think it's harder to watch than it is to be involved in, because like you say, you're in the moment, you're not thinking of too much about how close it is and how long to go. It was one of those games where just every contest you had to give it everything. It was such a slog all day, and there were so many crucial moments throughout that game, like Hawke obviously kicking that goal that hit the post, and the 2 goals right before half time, and St Kilda missed some really crucial goals in that last quarter. And then obviously the Scarlo toe poke.
The toe poke, yeah.
It was just one of the great games, great grand finals. Really, it'll go down as one of the greats of all time. And but like I said, every contest was just so hard fought, and because of the conditions, you could only really focus on that and not get too worried about how close it was and how long was left.
I mean, did you still have that idea? Oh, hang on, there's 5 to go, or there's whatever. We're up, we're down, whatever. Do you even allow yourself to look at that, let alone the time thing?
It motivates like how much you give for everything. Like it's like people say you give 100% all the time, which you try to do throughout the year, but nothing. You'll give no greater effort than when there's a grand final, premiership on the line.
That's clutch point, yeah.
It's that is absolutely everything you have, and I guess just how close it is. That's you just throw everything you've got at it essentially.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, never had the fortunate scenario being in an AFL grand final, but you're 100% right though. Like I think about the footy games I've played or basketball games that I still play, and if there's a couple of points in it and you're looking at the clock and there's like a minute left, you find an extra gear.
Yeah, that's
right.
You
just try and will yourself in, like even if your body's saying no, you just like the head kicks in and you just try and will yourself into it, and it's the reality of these things. And to do it on a stage like the AFL grand final, and to do it the incredible standard you have, like 100%, like massive congratulations to you. And then obviously the outcome was a fantastic one.
Yeah, and it's not like there's a lot of like the St Kilda boys that they obviously did exactly the same, but it's we're just, I guess we're very fortunate to be part of the successful one, and it's going to be like I said earlier, it's just something that ties us together forever.
And so after 108 games at the Cats and 100 goals, a 73% winning record, which is a fantastic one. I guess it's something that a lot of you boys from that period will have a very nice, attractive winning record. But after all that, the next step was the D's. Moving there as an unrestricted free agent. What was it like at the time of the move for you?
Well, it was an emotional one for me because I absolutely loved my time at the club, and I wasn't leaving because I was upset or anything like that. It was there was some younger players
Yeah, list movement stuff.
coming into the team that like Alan Christensen, who's a good friend of mine. Like these younger players, Mitch Duncan, all these guys were good young players, and like I was going to have to be exceptional to hold my spot because these guys were the guys that were coming through and they wanted to see what they were the next generation. So my opportunities were sort of teetering, I suppose, at that stage, and Melbourne, yeah, had that opportunity available there for me. They really needed players in my position, and yeah, I suppose that they're looking for some leadership as well. They just sort of cut a lot of their older players, so
Yeah.
I just thought it was a good opportunity and challenge for me. I was able to play in the VFL premiership that year, so that was a nice way to finish
Finish
off.
strong. Yeah.
Yeah, with the club, and I got the Tom Harley Award with the best clubman that year. So like there was no animosity or bad feelings between myself and the club. They saw it as a good opportunity for me, and I saw it the same way. So as as good as you can possibly be traded and leave a club, I felt like that's what it was for me with the club, and there was no ill feelings whatsoever. It certainly was a rounding rounding experience for my character going from such a successful club to a club that essentially was on its knees at the time.
Yeah. Obviously, you say like there was no animosity. That, I mean, that's obviously fantastic. At the time, did it take a while for you to digest that, or was there kind of conversations leading up to it that made it easier to digest? Was there some writing on the wall? I mean, was there anything for you that made it easier
Uh,
initially? Because it's never
yeah,
good news to hear, I assume. So
no, it's never good news to hear, but I could sort of tell it was getting harder and harder for me to get back into the team. Like I'm still playing pretty good footy in the VFL, and I just got to a halfway point of the year where I, um, you can really ride it from week to week. Am I in? Am I out? My focus became the younger players at that time. I just thought like I had a really good connection with some of the younger players
yeah,
that were playing VFL at the time, and we were going really well in the VFL. And I just thought, well, I'll just pour all my energy into playing good footy in the VFL and really, working with these younger boys, and we can have some success there. If I get picked in the AFL, well, that's awesome. But if not, I'm still going to have a good year and enjoy myself. And um, I guess I could see the writing on the wall in some ways. I think the club might have offered me another year if I really wanted it, but got offered 2 years at Melbourne and just felt like it was the right move for me.
and so yeah, obviously you talk about the massive differences between where the Cats were at and where the Demons were at the time, and thankfully for the sake of the D's, things obviously turned around, and you've fortunately got to be part of the club in the year that they won the premiership. But what was that like for you in those? It was 2 years that you were there. So what was that period like for you as you are kind of walking into a very different environment? But you're probably being looked at as someone who's just experienced multiple premierships in recent years and has that experience on behind you as well.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of brain picking going on? Were the people?
Yeah. I think any club that's not going well wants to know what the best clubs are doing, and it's a little bit. I still think clubs suffer from this to this day. Like clubs that aren't going as well, like more is more. Like they think you need to absolutely smash yourself at training. You should be training, 2 times, 3 times harder than everyone else.
To make
Um,
up a perceived difference. Yeah.
yeah. And that was the case when I went to Melbourne. We were doing insane pre-season sessions to the point where I got osteitis pubis at the end of the year. Like people talk about those bottom teams not showing effort, and I don't think effort should ever be spoken about in ways of AFL players because I was running probably, I was
More
running
than you ever had.
15 kilometres a game for Melbourne, and we were getting smashed. Like it was, if your team's not great, you tend to be running more because
Yeah, it makes sense. You're
you're
chasing.
actually defending more than you should be, and as the game goes on, you just you run out of legs and you end up getting run over the top of. But it was tough because we trained really hard, had a huge pre-season, but just didn't have the talent on the park. In my second game for the club against Essendon, we got beaten by 150 points at the MCG, and I just remember all the Melbourne fans just sprinting to the race to hurl abuse at us and throw their memberships at us, and that was the worst ever experience I ever had as an AFL player. Just some of the abuse that was yelled at us that night was really humbling experience in ways of appreciating what being part of a successful team is, but realising that these teams that are struggling aren't struggling because they don't care or aren't trying. They just
there's other factors.
And all the game tactics and know-how. Effort for me is a lazy way to say that teams aren't good enough. There's often a lot more to it than that. The talent might be there, and the way they play the game, the game style generally has a lot more to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, to win a game, let alone a premiership, requires multiple different pillars to all be kind of working in sync, and it only takes one of those to not be working the right way, whether it's a strategic thing or player skill level sort of thing, whatever it happens to be, that can bring down the entire deck of cards. And so, I think you're 100% right. That can kind of get lost along the way sometimes. And
and players can look like they're not trying. I get from the outside, players can see that. The fans can say that it just looked like he didn't put in any effort there, but generally speaking, it's because of what I touched on earlier, is that they're just running so hard on defence and
they're gassed.
Running a lot harder than they probably need to be because the team doesn't sync as well together. So they're not they're running past each other to defend rather than a structured system that helps them sort of save their energy. If you do see a player look like they're not trying, it's probably because they're gassed. They just don't have the energy to actually go.
That's totally fair. And so, I mean, as you said, it kind of resulted in, after your first year, OP, and then the following year, your season ended, unfortunately, with a foot injury as well, which then brought about the end of your career. When that injury first emerged, did you realise that might have been it, or was it?
Yeah, I think if I had played out that season, I might have got another year at Melbourne. But when it was a pretty significant injury, it was a navicular break, which generally takes sort of 12 months to really fully come back from.
And there's not even a guarantee there, as we know.
Yeah. One of my best mates, Matty Egan's obviously a good example of that. So as soon as they sort of diagnosed that's what it was, I knew that was going to be it for me. But at the same time, they didn't want to. They were in my meeting. They said, "Look, we don't want to lose you to the club. We feel like you can really still have impact around the place." And they offered me the role to stay on in player development. So I was pretty happy to take that role up.
And so obviously at that point, in terms of actual formal coaching, your experience is obviously extremely limited at that particular stage. How did you feel like you made that transition from player into player development?
So it wasn't the offer at the time was player welfare, player development. And I felt like I could have a really good impact in player welfare because of my journey, having come as a rookie list player, come as a player that was in and out of the team.
It's the perspective thing.
A lot, yeah. And then I was a player that was cemented at one point, player that played in premierships, and a player that played in teams that got absolutely belted. So felt like I really had a good understanding of what everyone on the list was going through, and could relate to a lot of different players, I suppose. So that's where I was pretty confident I could have a big impact straight away. The coaching side of things, you're never quite sure how you're going to go, but I was more confident in the skill development rather than the tactics, I suppose, when I first started out.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then obviously we saw the build that ultimately then led up to the D's premiership in 2021, of which you were absolutely a part of, and I would say an integral part of that. You might be selling yourself short with the shaking of the head there, but I mean, what was that like to be? You've played for the club, You've then worked alongside the players, with the club, coaching, all those sorts of different capacities, um, to then achieve that success.
Yeah, no, it
What
was
was that
awesome.
moment like?
Yeah, like, and you see more of it as a staff member than you do as a player. You realise everything that goes into it, and yeah, to see the club come from what I said was rock bottom in 2013, won 2 games, and my last year at the club they win the premiership. To see that journey was a pretty special one. And a lot of people ask me about the comparisons between Geelong and Melbourne, and their journeys are just so significantly different. What the Cats have been able to do to just stay in finals throughout that whole period is incredible. But it's a very different journey to the one Melbourne went on, where they had to absolutely bottom out and
And top
get
up.
some pretty good draft picks in. That doesn't guarantee you success either. They had good draft picks previous to that didn't work out. But to see that young talent come through, and then guys like Nathan Jones and Max Gawn, to see them have such a long period without success, and to Nate Jones's story unfortunately just miss out at the
At the
the
very
final
end, yeah.
bell. And Max Gawn to captain a premiership from where he was when I first started at the club was a pretty crazy journey, to witness that as well. So yeah, there's certainly not one way to get to the top, but it was very satisfying to see Melbourne's rise from bottom to top. That's for sure.
We obviously, I know it's a Cats show, but mentioning Max Gawn, we obviously we hear stories every now and then about what he was like in those early years. You obviously got to play alongside him in some of those early years,
Yeah.
and then obviously work alongside him beyond that in the off-field capacity. What was he like to work alongside?
No, Max is one of my
Early days, of course.
good mates. Like, I still catch up with him regularly
Yeah, good.
now. He's a character, as you see. Like,
Oh yeah,
what you see is what you get. He he really struggled with that when he was coming into being seen as a leader, because he didn't see himself like the type of person he is. He likes to have a laugh, likes to be, um, have a bit of banter with the players. But I guess what he didn't see in himself was how broad a lens he had on the whole playing group. Like, he could connect with everyone, and really cared about everyone as well.
yep,
He still catches up with all his ex teammates that have
good.
dropped off the list over the years. He's got a real big heart in that sense, and doesn't see himself above anyone. I think that's a big underrated part of his leadership. But I think because he wasn't necessarily that person when he first started, he sees those people now, as a leader, and doesn't discard, that they can't have a significant impact on the club, and he
Yeah, I'm with you.
brings them along. Whereas previous, they may have been knocked out of them just because they weren't seen as being professionals, but he embraces that part of people, and yeah, that's why he has become such a great leader. Um,
Respected internally and externally.
exactly. Yeah, and it's been awesome, yeah, to watch his journey, and yeah, really happy for the success that he's been able to have.
And so after the D's got their premiership in 2021, you moved back down the highway again, coming back to Geelong. What prompted the move for you?
Well, like I said, like when I left, it certainly wasn't a bad lead in any way. Like, I still love the club. I still watch the club really closely, and the Melbourne boys used to get stuck into me a bit about how much I barracked for them. And obviously, once Melbourne were out of the finals, I would
Yep,
still
the
really,
Geelong hat slips on.
yeah, I'd really barrack hard for the players. I was still really close with a lot of the playing group, and with James Kelly coming back, Matty Egan coming back. Still really good friends and close with Joel and Tommy, and I've got a young family. It just felt the timing was right to come back, I want to bring my family up in the Geelong community. I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old now, and everything just sort of fell into place at the right time, I suppose, with good friends coming back and still feeling really strongly about the footy club and the town itself. It just made sense, and the timing for my family.
Yeah, certainly the kids side of things. I mean, obviously, rewind 12 months ago when you were actually coming across to the club, and 2 and 4 for the kids. That's a pretty important age because the next year your 4-year-old becomes a 5-year-old, school, all those sort of things, and then all of a sudden what's required to kind of uproot the family and move is a lot greater. So I totally understand. Let alone obviously the connections and the love you've got for the club, but even on that family logistical side, it's super important. So
absolutely. I see myself being the Geelong person for a really long time. So we just bought our first house last week. So
congratulations.
Bought our house together in Geelong last week. So we're ready to well and truly to put the roots down now and be part of Geelong for a long time.
You're obviously seeing it as a Geelong person, home, and that sort of thing. I hope you're aware that there's also a lot of fans that now see you having gone through been there at the D's for 2021 and then come back to the Cats for 2022 and both premiership years. They're also seeing you as a pretty key good luck charm, if nothing else, for 2023. And I think there's a lot of people. Well, I mean, it's great to have you around the club anyway, but in that superstitious sort of way, I think they're pretty happy that you've stuck around going into 2023. You think you can bring us home another flag this year?
Well. I'm not going to say.
I'm not a superstitious person myself. I'm just.
No, I'm happy to be the good luck charm. So, and winning it sure as hell beats losing it. So,
well, yeah.
I'm happy. You never get sick of premierships, put it that way. So, I'm more than happy to keep them coming. That's for sure.
And out of interest, before we start winding things down a little bit, how many players have taken a bit of influence from your moonwalking coaching that was documented actually by the TV crews? They managed to capture that one, but anyone really try and replicate that since?
The boys love their music, I just like having a bit of fun with the players. So sometimes down in the gym, if the right song's playing, I'll bring out the moves, but that was just a bit of fun I was having with Eddie Betts at the time. We just noticed that the camera was on, and he said,
so you were 100% aware at the time, okay?
Yeah, no, he said, go out there and give the camera something, and I said, oh, all right, we'll see where it goes. I didn't know it was recording. It was just
pointed that way.
See the camera fixed on that spot of the ground. So there's always room for a bit of fun. And if you don't have that in footy, it can be a grind at different times. So, I don't know who's got the moves here. Shannon Neal's actually got some good moves, so maybe he's the next one to come through.
Yeah, right, okay. Look, I mean, he's obviously got quite a bit more height than you, so I'm a bit concerned that it might just be all arms and legs and a bit baby giraffe style, though, if he gives it a go. He's never coming on the show now after that.
He's pretty coordinated for a big man, actually.
Oh, good.
Keep an eye on him.
All right, well, we'll put him on the list as someone to watch in that particular space, if not for his footy ability, which is, from all I hear, he sounds like he's flying at the moment.
He's going really well, yeah.
So, as we start to wind things down, some, I guess, bigger picture sort of stuff, who's the greatest Cat of all time in your eyes?
Gary Ablett, Junior?
Yeah. So I guess this kind of answers then the next one as well, where I tend to ask the schoolyard pick style, junior v senior, and I think would that change at all?
Junior for me, has realistic claims to 4 Brownlows. Like in 2010, I think he kicked 44 goals and averaged 35 touches. Like no one's ever done that, and he didn't win it. And then obviously that one in the Gold Coast where he did his shoulder when he was about 7 or 8 votes clear.
It was absolutely flying. Yeah,
he should have had 4 Brownlows. Should have won the Norm Smith in 08, in my view. He's like, whenever I was in doubt on the footy field, I'll just look for the bald man and just kick it in his direction. No one could do the things that he could do on a field. Like the things, and that's not even the things that he did at training at times. He's the all-time best I've played with. by fair way. I shouldn't say by fair way because there's some unbelievable players, but
Well, past and players that
yeah,
you got to play with as well. So
yeah. Like I played with some special players. Like there was like one year I think we had 8 or 9 All Australians. So
yeah.
without you could go through all those guys. Like they're all unbelievable talents, but for me, Gaz was just on that next tier.
So in the moment where it's a heated moment, you look for the bald man and you've picked out Chappie instead or Josh Hunt instead.
Well, I was going to say that. Like, there were some other ball guys amongst our
Tommy
team,
Harley.
but they weren't bad options if you went to them. So, like, if it was Chappie or Joshy or Tommy, it wasn't the worst thing.
No, you hadn't lost out.
But yeah, Gaz had a certain shine to his baldness, so I could generally tell the difference between him and Chaps.
Just putting a bit of extra care into getting that polish right.
I think he might have put a bit of polish up there. I'm not sure. That's I can't verify.
Neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
So I guess like the junior v senior conversation, if you were at schoolyard pick style and you were choosing, would that be junior as well?
Yeah, well, yeah, I
Building
would, but that's not to say like I'd put them both in the top 5 players of all time, in my view. Like they're different players. Like senior was absolute freak. Don't get me wrong. Like
no, of course.
Yeah, and I was in awe of him as a kid growing up. I was a Collingwood supporter, but I went to a lot of the final series as a kid, and I just like some players you just get. You just that star struck, I suppose.
Yep.
And just being near him and just watching him go about his business, like he was certainly able to do things that no one in the game's ever been able to do. So, their talents were incredible. I guess I must just be a touch biased because I played with Gaz. I know the guys that played with senior would say senior. I think they would. And I'm not going to say that's the wrong answer either. But
no, you can totally, you wouldn't blame anyone.
Yeah. But
you can't go wrong, that's for sure.
No. But just what Gaz was able to do at a consistent level for such a long period of time was just, incredible.
I feel like the answer to the next question might be even influenced a little bit by some of your playing days and having played alongside some of the boys. But do you still have a favourite of the boys? And I hate to do that too because you obviously work at the club. But is there
a favourite, like as in a friend or as in a?
I'll let you determine that one. I don't want to put you in a corner on that one.
No, I've already sort of touched on Gaz, but as a player, so I won't sort of go into that. But like we're a really tight group now just because of the success that we had together.
Yep.
Like Stevie Johnson was best man at my wedding. James Kelly was in my wedding party. Brad Ottens is a great mate of mine. Matty Stokes, Tommy Lonigan, Andrew Mackey. Like you go through these. Ryan Gamble.
Yep.
Is one of my best mates.
You can't go wrong, can you?
To single out guys is really hard in this group. Like we're a really tight group all around a similar age. I just feel really fortunate to like being a country kid to come to a country town and have that tightness because going to Melbourne, we were like some of us lived 50 minutes apart when I was playing at Melbourne, whereas
different sides of the suburbs and whatnot.
Yeah, whereas in Geelong we all live 5 minutes from each other.
Yep.
So we did everything together. Literally.
Except maybe Jeremy Cameron from everything we see, with him taking golf shots in his driveway and popping them left, right, and centre. From what I've seen on social media recently, seems like the one cat that's maybe strayed out a little bit further. Yeah.
There's a couple that have gone out and got farms not far out the road. Reece Stanley's got his own farm. Tommy Hawkins. I think that's a real advantage of what the lifestyle offers. Like you can still have that lifestyle and still only be 10 or 15 minutes from the footy club, which
it's a nice luxury.
Yeah, you can't offer that in Melbourne, essentially. So that's one of the advantages that we really have living here and having our own stadium and all those things. So hopefully it holds the place in good stead to be able to attract some key talent for a long period to come.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. And I guess on that subject of kind of kind of future talent. Is there anyone, and this is not me asking you to play favourites or anything here, but for the Cats fans watching or listening, is there anyone that you feel like going into 2023 that we should be keeping a particularly close eye on? Someone who's really positioning themselves well for a big year. And again, that there may not be one, but is there anyone that really stands out to you?
Yeah, well, last year, I'm taking credit for it, but it was Tyson Stengel stood out to me at the season. And yeah, the same way this year, I think Ollie Henry is
good.
I think he's going to be an absolute gun, to be honest. But not to put pressure on him, but he's just got talent.
I'll cut this few minutes out and send it over to him.
Yeah, I rate him really highly. And whether it's this year or next year or whatever, he's still only really young. So I'm not to say he's going to tear it apart this year, but he's just got qualities in him that players don't have. He's going to be a really hard matchup. He can take a high mark, and he's awesome when it hits the ground. So he's the one for me that I think will, whether it's next year or this year or in years to come, I think he's going to be a really good player.
He's got the right qualities to own the game. So hopefully it all works out well for him and the Cats, obviously, by extension. Shannon, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing this journey so far, the successes along the way, the incredible accomplishments. It's been, as a fan of the Cats for my entire life, it's been an absolute thrill to be able to watch you strut your stuff on the field and again, obviously, be a part of those premiership sides that have brought myself, so many fans, so much joy. So thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Like I said, I've watched a few of the podcasts gone by, and I'll follow you guys on Twitter as well. And we'll continue to watch you guys from afar going forward. So I really appreciate you having me on, Paul.
And so for anyone watching or listening that wants to keep tabs, I'm sure they probably already know how, but if anyone does want to keep tabs on what you're up to social media wise, where would they be best to go?
Myself, Shannon Byrnes on Twitter, but I'm not very active on that anymore. It's more.
I did double check that one because as you probably know, I do have the handle above, and I went, that's the one I know best. And I took a look, and hang on, 2021 was the last update. I'll leave that be.
Yeah, no. Well, being in sort of the role that I'm in now, and you can't be probably. Well, I don't know. You don't want to get yourself in too much trouble on those things and give away too much. So Instagram's probably where I probably show most of who I am these days, I guess. So maybe look me up on there if you have to. You don't have
S_Byrnes10. Anyone watching, it's right above. Anyone listening, well, you just heard it. So again, as I said, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing this journey so far. And hopefully for those superstitious Geelong fans, you are another good luck charm for us. And 2023 ends really well as well.
Yeah, why not? Let's go again in 23.
And Cats fans, please make sure, if you haven't already done so, please make sure to subscribe to The Hoop Show on YouTube. Make sure Behind the Play on podcast feeds. And if you would like to get early access to any of these episodes in the future, there is the Patreon as well there. For just a few bucks, it's like literally one coffee for an entire month. Gets you early access to episodes like Shannon's and several others over the course of the year as well. So please consider popping a few bucks in there as well. It really helps grow what we're doing and expand what we're hoping to provide people going forward. So please consider doing that. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and go Cats.
Go Cats.